He betrayed me and ran off with my best friend, completely unaware that I was secretly earning over $500,000 a year. I remember exactly the moment Marcus decided to destroy our marriage. He sat on the living room couch, eyes glued to his phone like the outside world didn't exist. I had just returned from a grueling 36-hour shift at the hospital. My feet were sore, my head was spinning, and all I wanted was a hot shower and sleep. But the moment I put my bag down, I heard his voice, cold as ice. "Aria, I want a divorce." No preamble, no emotion, just a bland announcement, like discussing the weather. No preamble, no emotion, just a bland announcement, like discussing the weather. I stood frozen for a few seconds, stunned. "What did you just say?" I asked, trying to stay calm even though my heart was pounding. "I said I want a divorce," he repeated slowly, like I was too exhausted to grasp it the first time. I should have cried or screamed, but instead, all I felt was a strange mix of numbness and awe at how ruthlessly cold he was. "Why?" I asked, barely believing my own voice. He crossed his arms, eyes never leaving his phone. "I can't live like this anymore. You're always working. There's no time for me. This isn't the life I wanted." I let out a bitter laugh. "Working? I'm a cardiac surgeon. I've given my entire youth to reach this level, with an income that meant he never had to worry. But not once did he ask how tired I was. He never cared to know who I truly was." "If that's what you want," I said, voice steady and soft as fog. Marcus paused slightly, looking up, surprised. "You mean that?" "Yes, I won't hold on to someone who wants to leave." He nodded slowly. "Good. I've already spoken to a lawyer. You need to move out by the end of the month." I had to move out of the apartment I bought with my own hard-earned money? Absurd, but I didn't react. I smiled and nodded. "Fine." He tilted her head as if she couldn't believe what she just heard. "Seriously?" "Yes, Elena. If you want to end this, I won't stop you." A flicker of hesitation crossed his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a cold shrug. "Good. I've already spoken to my lawyer. You need to move out of this apartment before the 30th. Leave what used to be my home? His indifference almost made me laugh, but I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. "Fine," I said, voice flat, turning to walk upstairs. I could feel his gaze trailing after me, waiting for me to scream, beg, or break down. But I didn't. I refused to break. In the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands clenched to the point of whiteness. This wasn't just a breakup. This was a power struggle. Marcus wanted to win, wanted to make me the loser, the one left behind. But he didn't understand me. I used to be the one who trusted, sacrificed, and compromised, but not anymore. The days that followed were hell. Marcus suddenly became overly attentive, always present, always fixing, always polite to the point of being unnatural. Every meal was a performance. Every night, a silent confrontation. And then there was Tessa, the close colleague he kept mentioning. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. But then, the way he talked about her, the way his eyes darted whenever I asked, said it all. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I let him believe he was in control. I let him think I was weak, harmless. One night, as I was folding my leather jacket into a suitcase, Marcus leaned against the doorway, his eyes mocking. "Where do you plan to stay? With Tessa, perhaps?" His tone was casual, but venom dripped from every word. I zipped up the last suitcase, the metallic sound echoing coldly through the empty room. Turning around, I looked at Marcus, the man who used to be my whole world, now standing there like a stranger. "You don't need to worry about me, Marcus. I'll be fine," I said, my eyes unwavering. He smirked, that kind of smile that was both mocking and surprised. Good, because next week, Tessa and I are planning a little get-together here. If you're still lurking around, that would be awkward. A party in this apartment with Tessa, the woman he once swore was just a colleague? I almost laughed. The absurdity and my old, worn-out trust made me want to vomit. Feel free, I replied, swinging my bag over my shoulder, my hand gripping the strap so tightly my knuckles turned white. I'll be long gone by then. As I walked past him, I could feel his triumphant gaze stabbing into my back, as if he had won, as if I was the one fleeing from a game I never got to play on fair terms. But what Marcus didn't know was, I'm walking away to prepare for a different game. A game where I'm the one setting the board. If he wants to burn everything down, I'll let him, and I'll stand there, silent, and watch the flames consume him. Because sometimes, revenge doesn't need to scream. It needs patience. It needs to wait. It means letting someone destroy themselves in the comfort of their own arrogance. And trust me, I was just getting started. I used to think I wasn't capable of hatred, that forgiveness was the only way to survive. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and I haven't forgotten. I remember the first time I heard the name Tessa drop casually during dinner, like a sweet whisper. She said this. She suggested that. I nodded then, forcing a smile, thinking I was just being paranoid. But then the look in his eyes whenever he mentioned her, the way the corner of his mouth curled even when there was nothing funny, started to repeat. I started taking notes. Every time he texted and quickly hid his phone when I walked in. Every time he fixed his hair, sprayed cologne just because he had a meeting with Tessa. Red flags weren't flags anymore. They were oceans of blood. I didn't ask. I didn't beg. I just observed and planned. I knew Marcus. He always thought he was clever, smooth, leaving no loose ends. But what he hadn't accounted for was that I was no longer the same woman he once knew. I began to notice more carefully. The way he bowed his head when texting, then smiled faintly, only to immediately turn off the screen. The way he dressed up, wore stronger cologne every time he had a meeting with Tessa. The same defensive phrases, "We're just colleagues," or "You're overreacting, Alina." Overreacting. The classic line of someone guilty trying to shift the blame. I still hadn't confronted him. What for? He'd only deny it, manipulate my feelings, and make me out to be the jealous, insecure wife who wouldn't let her husband have female friends. So I let Marcus believe I was distracted, that I was busy with work, with the house, with moving out. But in reality, I saw everything, and I remembered every detail. I let him think he was winning, unaware that his own life was falling into a trap I had carefully set. The real blow came when Tessa showed up at my door, unannounced. I was packing, folding layers of my life into a few suitcases, just as Marcus had so politely requested. The doorbell rang. When I opened it, there she was, Tessa with a smug half-smile full of confidence. She walked in like she had lived there all along. "Alina, are you doing okay?" I looked at her, struggling to hold on to the last scraps of patience I had left. "What are you doing here, Tessa?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She leaned against the wall, wearing that fake, seductive nonchalance. "I heard you were moving out. Thought I'd drop by and see if you needed help." Help? From the woman quietly taking my place in my own life? Her deceit was almost professionally smooth. "I can manage," I replied evenly, folding the last shirt. Tessa stayed. When I looked up, I caught her watching me closely, measuring every reaction, as if testing my limits. She wasn't here just to check in. She was here to claim her territory. Look, she said, her voice dropping to a soft tone. I didn't think things would go this far. But, feelings, they have a mind of their own. Feelings, I echoed, then set the suitcase aside, stood up, and walked straight toward her. I stared directly into Tessa's eyes, unblinking. Yes, Tessa. Feelings. And sometimes those feelings are the very fire that will burn the ones who think they've already won. For the first time, I saw her hesitate. The arrogance on her face dissolved into silent emptiness. I didn't need to say more. I quietly returned to my suitcase, finishing the final zip. Silence, but sharper than any insult. You're a strong woman, Alina, she said, backing toward the door, her voice faltering. I didn't mean any harm. I didn't respond. The door closed behind her with a soft but decisive click. In that moment, I knew I hadn't lost. I had simply withdrawn to prepare for the counterattack. Tessa left without another word. Only after her silver car disappeared down the sunset-drenched road did I finally exhale. A long breath I'd likely held in for days. That night, I lay on a bed that would soon no longer be mine and let my thoughts crash like waves on the shore of memory, the ignored signs, the daily droplets of lies, and the betrayal, cold, brutal, like a blade slicing in silence. I could have raged. I could have screamed, thrown things, torn the house apart. But then what? In their eyes, I'd just be a sad footnote in their love story, an easy smear to wipe off. But what they didn't know, I was not the weak wife they assumed. I had quietly watched, quietly remembered, and quietly prepared for the next move. If Marcus and Tessa thought they could waltz hand in hand into their love story without consequence, they were about to be violently awakened. Because betrayal doesn't end when it's discovered. That's only when the real game begins. And this time, I'm not just playing. I'm here to win. No one can truly imagine what it feels like to have the person you love stomp on years of marriage like it was just an old rug they couldn't wait to replace. I'm not trying to drag this out, I said, facing Marcus during our final meeting. I looked him straight in the eye, no trembling, no tears. The lawyer has finalized the terms. He wanted the apartment, a few pieces of furniture, and a portion of our savings. What he assumed was all I had. Maybe Marcus thought I'd push back, cry, or beg to keep something. But I didn't. I signed every document without hesitation, every page like a death knell, and a rebirth. Marcus frowned. You're really okay with all this? Why not? I replied softly. It's just stuff, Marcus. You can have it all. I saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes, but like Olivia once did, he quickly buried it beneath a smug nod. He thought he'd won. But what Marcus didn't know was that the apartment wasn't actually mine. It was a rental, with the lease under the name of the company I used to work for 6 years ago. As for the shared savings he thought he was entitled to, that was just a portion I deliberately left behind, enough to create an illusion. The real money had long been transferred into other investments, independent accounts, stocks, and even a startup I had been quietly funding for the past 2 years. Marcus had no idea. When the final papers were signed and sealed, he leaned back in his chair and spoke like a victorious speaker. Feels good that we handled this like adults, doesn't it? I only smiled, not because I was pleased, but because I had learned that silence is the sharpest form of retaliation. A week later, I left. I took a few suitcases and left Marcus everything he thought was his war trophy, the furniture, the paintings, even the expensive espresso machine he never knew how to use. Not long after, a neighbor sent me a photo. Marcus helping Tessa move her things in. She stood at the door, cradling a bouquet of white lilies, beaming like she was stepping into her dream home. Maybe they thought they were living the opening scene of a romantic film, unaware that the real climax was still being written. What Marcus didn't know was that I had been collecting evidence of his affair with Tessa for a while. Photos, messages, location history, hotel and restaurant receipts. I could have used all of that to destroy him in court, but I didn't. Why? Because I wanted something else. I wanted quiet revenge, a slow-burning storm, subtle but inevitable. I wanted them to live in daily fear, wondering when the past would catch up. And I wanted a front-row seat when it did. In the weeks that followed, I started over. I moved into a small apartment with a balcony facing the sea. I focused on work. The new project exceeded all expectations. I even began teaching an online skills class where I could be myself. No more pretending, no more forced smiles. And Marcus and Tessa? Busy flaunting their new life on social media, brunch photos, Christmas pictures, cozy shots beside a Christmas tree. I didn't call, didn't text, didn't interact. My silence was the clearest declaration. I had walked away, not in tears, not in pain, but with my head held high and my heart at peace. One evening, a friend messaged me. "Did you hear Tessa's throwing a housewarming party? Marcus invited a bunch of co-workers. They're really putting on a show." I just sipped my wine and smiled faintly. Of course. They needed an audience to believe in the roles they were playing. They didn't realize their house was built on deception, and the first cracks were already showing. That night, sitting by the large window, watching the city lights shimmer, I felt calm. Marcus thought he had won. Tessa thought she had it all. But neither of them realized. What they truly lost was me. A woman who knew how to forgive, how to stay silent, and how to strike back. And the best revenge is a dish served cold. I'm still waiting. But this time, I'm the one writing the script. She couldn't sustain the lifestyle she once called an upgrade. One rainy afternoon, I got a call from Mrs. Lorraine, the sweet elderly neighbor from the old place. "Elena, you won't believe this," she chuckled on the phone, pausing to compose herself. "This morning, your girl and that handsome guy got a knock on the door from the landlord. 3 months of unpaid rent." I leaned back in my chair, a slow smile spreading across my lips. 3 months? Yep. Pretending everything's fine, but anyone can tell. They're drowning. I didn't feel smug. I felt at peace. They had built a sandcastle out of greed and betrayal, and now the tide of reality was washing it all away. While they scrambled to hold on to the illusion, I had already entered a new chapter. I poured everything into work and myself. My income more than doubled since the divorce. Successful collaborations came one after another, like a domino effect. I didn't just stand up, I rose. And that was when, like a reflex, Olivia came back. A late-night message lit up my screen. "Hi, Alina. I hope you're doing well. I just miss our talks. How have you been lately?" I stared at the screen for a while, not because I was emotional, but because I was amazed by her ability to pretend. Olivia wasn't checking in. She was testing the waters, measuring if I was still a threat or a potential asset. I replied, "I'm doing great, Olivia. Everything's going really well. How about you?" Her response came unusually fast. "Not bad. Brian and I have been a bit tight on finances lately, but we'll get through it." I nearly laughed. "We'll get through it." More like wishful thinking than fact. A week later, after a meeting at the financial center, I saw Olivia waiting outside. No makeup, slightly messy hair, dark circles under her eyes. She looked nothing like the woman who once walked past me like a symbol of triumph. "Alina," she said, her voice softer than usual. I walked up, nodded slightly. "What brings you here?" Olivia clutched her purse straps, then sighed. "Things with Brian, they're not what I thought. It's been really tough. I just wanted to talk to someone who understands." I looked her straight in the eye. For the first time in years, I saw no pride, no manipulation, just a lost woman. "I hope you get through it soon," I said calmly, then walked away. She tried to force a smile, but I saw every little crack on her carefully made-up face. As I turned away, a sense of fulfillment rose, like a warm mist seeping into what used to be open wounds. Tessa and Marcus thought they'd leveled up, but they didn't realize the price was being paid in delusion and greed. Now they were trapped in a life beyond their actual means, an overpriced rental, performative dinners, luxury items to feed their egos. And while they desperately maintained a perfect facade, the inside was rotting. The best part? I didn't need to do anything. They walked themselves right into the swamp, and I just stood back, quietly watching them drown in the consequences they created. The artificial world they built together was now crumbling piece by piece. And I haven't even started my revenge yet. The truth is, revenge doesn't need to be loud, doesn't need weapons or tears. Sometimes silence is the sharpest weapon. And I chose that silence. I let the results speak for themselves. While they were busy playing the successful couple, I was busy living real life. My career soared, clients returned, referrals spread, and my income hit a number I never dared to dream, over $500,000 a year. But I didn't post about it, didn't tell anyone. I let Tessa go on believing I was still Alina the failure, the woman who lived off her ex-husband, because I knew sometimes being underestimated is an advantage. Instead of worrying about them, I gave my full focus to myself. I moved into a luxury apartment in an artsy neighborhood, filled with morning light, quiet reading rooms at night, and every corner reflecting my effort. No trace of betrayal, only me, free and whole. By day, I gave my all to work. By night, I spent time on what brought me joy, dancing, painting, hanging out with friends, or simply sipping wine while watching the city from my breezy balcony. Life felt lighter, freer, and full of promise. Tessa didn't disappear completely. Every now and then, I'd still get messages or hear stories from others. The two of them are drowning in debt. Tessa had to sell off some of her luxury handbags to stay afloat. Marcus's birthday party ended in the dark because they forgot to pay the electricity bill. "You should have seen Tessa's face," a friend told me over the phone, unable to hide the glee. She wanted to disappear into the ground, while Marcus pretended like nothing serious was happening, but everyone saw right through it. I didn't laugh, I just nodded, and a quiet satisfaction trickled through my veins. This wasn't gloating, this was balance. They broke the balance through betrayal. And now, nature was simply restoring everything to where it belonged. I ran into Marcus by chance at a cafe. At first, he didn't see me. I had a few moments to observe him. He was hunched over an old laptop, brow furrowed, scrolling through a job search website. When he finally looked up and saw me, the change in his expression was immediate. No more confidence, no more arrogance, just awkwardness, laced with a hint of shame. "Elena," he said, startled as he stood. "Marcus," I responded calmly. "How have you been?" "Good. And you?" Still okay. Keeping busy with some odd jobs." His eyes darted around, avoiding mine. I gave a small smile. "Sounds Great. An awkward silence stretched between us. He fidgeted, then quickly excused himself, saying he had something urgent, and left. I didn't need to ask anything else. I saw everything. In his expression, in the way he hurried off. Marcus was in free fall, and the perfect life with Tessa was only a facade on the verge of collapse. The following week, I received a message from Tessa. It started with harmless small talk, but I knew the real meaning behind it. She was testing the waters, trying to see if I'd be willing to help. I ignored most of it, and the few replies I gave were short, polite, leaving no openings. Then came a more direct message. Alina, I know we've had a lot of misunderstandings, but I really need someone to talk to right now. I read it and left it there. No response, not out of anger, but because I owed her nothing. She made her choice. Now she had to live with it. My silence said everything. While they struggled in the swamp they created, I was living my life, peacefully, with worth and purpose. I didn't need to get revenge. I just needed to live better, and let them see it, in every time I ignored them, every rumor about my success, every time we happened to cross paths, me glowing, them shrinking. This wasn't retaliation. This was a rebirth. And I wasn't just surviving. I was soaring, brilliantly, with no need to look back. Their downfall wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a slow, brutal implosion they brought upon themselves. I didn't need to interfere. I simply watched from a distance, collecting scattered bits of gossip from mutual friends, veiled posts on social media, and carefully curated photos trying to project a normal life. Each update was like another puzzle piece falling into place, a picture unraveling, trapped in the very trap their pride had built, and the water was quietly rising by the day. At first, Tessa still clung to the glossy exterior. She posted smiling photos with Marcus at fancy dinners, check-ins at luxurious resorts, all clearly funded by debt. Everything filtered in vibrant tones, captions hinting at bliss. But then the cracks started showing. Posts became fewer, the food less extravagant. Tessa looked worn out. Marcus avoided the camera like he was hiding something. And if you looked closely, the smiles in the photos weren't real anymore. Then came the whispers. Old friends started murmuring. Tessa looks so run down these days. I heard Marcus's job situation is shaky. Her once perfectly styled hair was now frizzy, her designer dresses replaced with clearance rack blouses. As for Marcus, who once obsessed over every detail, now wore the same old suit he once declared unworthy of his image. And one day, the rumors became reality. I was making coffee when I got a call from Lana, a mutual friend. Alina, listen, she said, barely containing her laughter. You're going to love this. I raised an eyebrow, heart steady, voice calm. What is it? Marcus and Tessa are in trouble. Apparently they're behind on rent by several months. I paused for a few seconds, letting it sink in. Rent? I asked. I thought they bought that place after the settlement. Lana burst out laughing. No, girl, they've been renting this whole time, just faking stability, and now the landlord's about to kick them out. I didn't laugh out loud, just smiled, a faint, quiet smile. Not one of mockery, but of release. Justice, even if delayed, is the most expensive medicine. But their financial woes didn't stop there. A mutual acquaintance messaged me. Tessa had been fired. She still put on a calm face as if she was in control, but it was clear she was unraveling. Marcus, who once told me I was directionless, never had any direction himself, except for the illusion of success he never achieved. Now both of them, broke and drowning in bills, were stuck in the chaos they created. Their polished life was crumbling. One evening, as I sipped tea and reviewed my schedule, my phone buzzed with an unexpected message from Marcus. Alina, I really need to talk. This isn't simple. I paused, hand still on the mouse, then typed, What's going on? He responded almost instantly, like he'd been waiting. It's not great. Tessa and I are going through some things. I just wondered if you could help. A small loan, just to get us through. A loan. From me. I couldn't help but laugh at the bitter irony. Marcus, the man who once forced me out of our home, treated me like a burden, was now asking for help? I replied shortly, Sorry to hear that, but I'm afraid I can't help. I'm sure you'll manage. His next message came slower, and I could feel the tone shift from pleading to frustration. Alina, please, just this once. You don't have to be so harsh. I didn't respond, not out of anger, but because I didn't need to. Marcus and Tessa had chosen their path. They were no longer my concern. The next news came a week later, like a cold gust of wind. They were officially evicted. The landlord, after many chances, gave a final deadline. And they couldn't make it. A mutual friend called, half pitying, half in disbelief. Alina, you should have seen it. It was nothing like who they used to be. Tessa looked like she was breaking down, and Marcus looked 10 years older. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Their collapse had nothing to do with me. It was the price of choices they once thought were wise. Marcus left someone who stood by him for an empty promise. Tessa believed that taking what wasn't hers was victory. And me? I'm still here, standing strong, not by luck, but by not lying to myself. The clearest sign came on a drizzly morning. I saw Marcus again, in a convenience store near my new apartment complex. He wore a worn-out jacket, his face gray and hollow, pushing a cart filled with discounted instant noodles. He looked up, and our eyes met. Alina. His voice trembled, stripped of the confidence he once had when demanding I walk out of his life. Marcus, I nodded, calm and collected. He looked like he wanted to say something. His lips parted, then hesitated and fell silent. The man who used to brag about a radiant future was now nothing but a slumped shadow. I hope you're doing okay, I said, breaking the silence. He gave a slight nod, avoiding my gaze. You too, he muttered, before hastily pushing his shopping cart away, his steps unsteady. Marcus had made his choice. He had traded trust and genuine love for something fleeting. Now life was making him pay the price of that poor decision. I didn't need revenge. Time had already done that for me. And as I walked out of the supermarket that day, I realized something. Karma doesn't need a push, just time. A week later, just as I had predicted, everything began to crumble. Marcus and Tessa, no longer knowing how to cope, started flailing, calling, texting everyone. They would look for someone to blame or someone to save them. One morning, just after I finished a call with an investor, my phone lit up with an unfamiliar number, but I recognized the voice immediately, Marcus. I almost let it ring out, but curiosity, or maybe instinct, won. I picked up, voice steady. This is Alina speaking. His voice was urgent, tense, and slightly broken. Alina, I think we need to talk. I leaned back in my chair, crossed my legs, and said evenly, About what, Marcus? He paused, as if choosing every word with care. About everything. About Tessa. About you and me. I smirked. It had been a long time since he mentioned you and me. You and me? I echoed. Marcus, you and me ended the moment you signed the divorce papers. So what do you want now? His voice lowered to a whisper. Things aren't going well, Alina. After you left, Everything fell apart. Tessa and we're having some problems. I just thought, maybe you could help? Help. There it was, the real reason. I pretended not to understand, gave a dry chuckle. Help with what? Just a small loan, he said quickly, practically skipping over the word loan. Just enough for Tessa and me to get back on our feet. Temporarily. I couldn't help it. I laughed out loud. Marcus, you left me for a naive assistant because you thought she offered a more exciting life. And now you're back, begging me to fix the mess you made? His voice turned sharp, slipping into that all too familiar defensive tone. You don't understand. Tessa and I are just going through a rough patch. I cut him off, voice cold as steel. Marcus, you made your choice. You gambled everything to chase what you thought was better. And now that it's crumbling, you want me to be your safety net? Not a chance. Before he could speak again, I ended it. You once said I was too realistic, too independent, lacking in fire. Well, now go enjoy that fire with Tessa. I'm not here to put it out for you. I hung up before he could say another word. The next time we met wasn't on the phone. A week later, Marcus showed up unannounced at my office. He looked terrible. Wrinkled suit, sunken eyes from lack of sleep, his once slicked back hair, now a disheveled mess. A reflection of his mind. He pushed past my assistant, who tried to stop him. Alina, I need to talk to you. I sat up straight, arms crossed, keeping composed. You have 2 minutes, make it quick. He launched into a ramble about hard times, failed business deals, how Tessa wasn't the same anymore. And then, with no pride left, he lowered his head and said, I just need one small favor. I cut him off, eyes locked on his desperate face. Marcus, you chose to leave me in exchange for a brighter future. So, how's that dream going now? His cheeks flushed, whether from anger or shame I didn't bother to tell. Alina, I know I hurt you, but you don't have to be so cold. You used to be kind. Kind? I scoffed. I once loved you. I believed in a future with you, and you destroyed that. Now you come crawling back for money like an emotional beggar? I owe you nothing. And then, like a perfectly timed slap from the universe, Tessa walked in. At that exact moment, too perfect to be coincidence, she appeared. She looked even worse than Marcus. Tangled hair, pale face, eyes wild like someone waking up inside the nightmare they created. Alina, she started, forcing a tight smile. Can we talk like adults? I set my coffee cup down, stood up, and slowly walked toward her on instinct. Adults? I echoed, smiling faintly. You mean the kind of adult who sleeps with someone's husband and then comes to the wife for help? Wait, Alina, it's not what you think. Tessa winced, still clinging to the last shred of dignity. We made mistakes, she mumbled. Marcus and I were in financial trouble, and we thought maybe you could help. Just a small loan. I stayed silent. So silent the air itself seemed to freeze. In that stillness, memories returned. All the nights I waited for Marcus to come home from late meetings, the cold beds I slept in with a heart going numb from unspoken suspicion, the promotions I turned down to prioritize our family, while he was secretly building another life behind my back. And now, this woman, the one who shattered my marriage, was standing in front of me, asking for money. I laughed. A dry, bitter laugh with not a hint of humor. You really think I'd give you 2 money? Tessa blushed. Her eyes darted around as if searching for an emergency exit. Alina, it's not about me. It's about Marcus. He's lost. He needs someone to save him. I took a step forward, my gaze cold as ice. I owe you nothing, Tessa. You and Marcus made this mess. Now live in it. Marcus reached out, eyes red, his voice hoarse. Please, Alina. We're really, really desperate. I turned to look at him, unblinking, my voice calm to the point of chilling. Desperation doesn't cleanse betrayal, Marcus. You both chose that path. Now live with the consequences. No more words. I walked to the door, opened it wide, and gestured for them to leave. They stood frozen for a moment, as if waiting for me to change my mind. But my eyes didn't waver. Finally, they bowed their heads and quietly stepped outside. The door clicked shut behind them with a sharp finality, and for the first time in months, I felt something truly close. They thought they could manipulate me, soften me with guilt and emotion. But I wasn't the naive, fragile Alina they once knew. This wasn't just a rejection. It was a declaration, a statement that I would no longer let others define my worth. As I returned to the table and sat down, I realized I was smiling, a small smile, but genuine. They thought they'd destroyed me, but in truth, they had set me free. The miracle of betrayal is that it always circles back to bite its creator. Marcus and Tessa believed that by being together, they could escape the consequences. But the first crack in their carefully constructed illusion came fast. It began with Carla, a mutual acquaintance who loved gossip and never hid her glee when drama was brewing. She called me one late afternoon. Alina, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. I'm listening, Carla, I said, chuckling as I poured myself some tea. Marcus is seeing someone else. I burst out laughing, a real, full laugh I hadn't felt in ages. Are you serious? Dead serious. Tessa found messages between him and some new girl from his office. Isn't that ridiculous? I shook my head, not from surprise, but because life really does have a talent for turning hypocrites into tragedies. Marcus, the man who betrayed me for Tessa, now betrayed Tessa in the exact same way. Karma didn't just catch up with them, it crushed them. Tessa, once smug and triumphant, had now become betrayed. I heard her scream at Marcus in the middle of a crowded cafe. Marcus tried to keep his cool, but when a full cup of coffee flew into his face, there was nothing left to fake. I could almost picture the scene, Tessa absolutely livid. And it didn't end there. The girl Marcus had been chasing wasn't just a fling. She was younger, freer, and clearly had no interest in being tied down. Marcus, as always, deluded himself into thinking he could start over with someone better. Tessa wouldn't accept it. She questioned him, pressured him, cried. But Marcus was still Marcus, always finding ways to run instead of facing the storm. He started blaming Tessa for everything. The debt, the unstable job, the pressure, all the chaos he himself had created. Fights erupted nearly every night. Neighbors heard objects breaking, yelling. Mutual friends began to keep their distance. Eventually, Marcus disappeared. He moved in with the younger woman, who soon discovered exactly who he really was. Tessa was left behind. No rent money, no job, no friends. Her family, long exhausted by her drama, quietly withdrew. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. Tessa lit up on the screen. I hesitated, then picked up. Alina. No greeting, no introduction, just a voice weighed down by exhaustion, rage, and bitterness. You were right about Marcus. He's a selfish, lying bastard. I can't believe I ever trusted him. I said nothing. Let her spill. I could have sympathized, been kind, but deep down I found it fascinating. When she finally stopped, I replied slowly, Tessa, you made your choice. You picked Marcus because you thought he was better than me. So, how's that going for you? She fell silent. I could hear her heavy breathing. Finally, she whispered, voice trembling, I don't need a lecture, I need your help. No. My answer was firm and final. What you need is to learn how to live with the consequences of your own decisions. She hung up. No further words. From what I heard through a few old acquaintances, Marcus never came back. He moved in with Tessa, who quickly realized he was exactly what I'd always warned her about. Unstable, unreliable, couldn't hold a job for more than 3 months, and couldn't hold on to kindness for even 3 days. Tessa, once so confident she was the woman he was always looking for, was left standing in the ruins of a shattered life. No job, no savings, and most importantly, no one left who believed in her or wanted her around. Her family had long grown weary of the scandals she caused, from her affairs to the financial mess. Friends disappeared one by one. She had exiled herself into a loneliness she once thought herself immune to. The apartment that Tessa and Marcus once shared had grown cold and empty. The once affectionate photos vanished from social media, replaced by silence. The bragging, the jabs, the passive-aggressive digs were gone too, because now they had nothing left to flaunt, and I didn't have to do a thing. Karma was doing its job, quietly, ruthlessly, and with precision. There's a quiet satisfaction in watching people who thought they'd won slowly choke on their own bad decisions. They believed they could manipulate, lie, and betray their way to happiness. But life always has a way of teaching lessons, especially to those who refuse to learn through kindness. While they were busy blaming and backstabbing each other, I was thriving. My career soared, my life found peace, and my future was clearer than ever. People say the best revenge is living well, and if that's true, then I won a long time ago. You'd be surprised to find that hitting rock bottom isn't the end. Sometimes it's the strongest foundation you can build your life upon, one that no one can ever shake again. For me, the divorce wasn't the ending. It was the prologue to a new chapter, a beginning disguised beneath the ashes of betrayal and hurt. Marcus and Tessa may have burned the bridge behind them, but I was building a stronger one ahead, brick by brick, with courage, clarity, and love for myself. After the divorce, I made a promise to myself. I would not let their betrayal define me. I would rise, not to make them regret, but because I deserved peace, and I kept that promise. Step 1. Invest in myself. I moved into a sleek penthouse in the heart of the city, glass walls flooded with sunlight, minimalist chic interiors, and a balcony overlooking the river. It wasn't just a home, it was a declaration, a symbol of rebirth. My career, already steady, skyrocketed. Freed from Marcus's constant criticism and emotional sabotage, I poured my energy into work. Clients sensed the new energy in me, clean, powerful, unburdened. Contracts kept rolling in. My annual income surpassed $500,000 and kept climbing. New doors opened, speaking engagements, collaborations, investment opportunities from people I used to admire from afar. Every contract I signed, every time I stood on a stage, was an unspoken message. I'm no longer the woman you once underestimated. I also rebuilt my social life. Old friends who distanced themselves to avoid the drama started returning, this time to support me. New people came into my life who valued the real me, not the version I used to mold just to please someone else. I attended networking events, met strong, independent women. I traveled, not to escape, but to rediscover myself. But the biggest change happened inside me. I learned to love myself, something that once seemed so simple, yet I had never truly done. Back then, I lived to please Marcus. I shrank myself to fit the mold of his impossible standards. I apologized for everything, even when I did nothing wrong. But not anymore. Now I know I deserve unconditional happiness. Therapy helped me immensely. I couldn't have done it all alone. One day, my therapist told me, "Alina, you are not responsible for other people's choices. You're only responsible for how you respond to them." That sentence became my compass. I began rediscovering my creativity, parts of me that had been buried for years under the role of wife, homemaker, in a home that had long since lost its warmth. I used to love writing, capturing golden light through a camera lens, and dreaming of telling my story through words and photos. Only once I found freedom did I have the time and energy to pursue it seriously. I started a blog, part personal journal, part platform to share insights and lived truths. I wrote about healing, about the darkest days, and about the first glimmers of light after the storm. I began rediscovering my creativity, parts of me that had been buried for years under the role of wife, homemaker, in a home that had long since lost its warmth. I used to love writing, capturing golden light through a camera lens, and dreaming of telling my story through words and photos. Only once I found freedom did I have the time and energy to pursue it seriously. I started a blog, part personal journal, part platform to share insights and live truths. I wrote about healing, about the darkest days, and about the first glimmers of light after the storm. To my surprise, the blog resonated. Women from everywhere emailed me, those stuck in toxic marriages, newly heartbroken, or learning to love themselves again. They called me an inspiration, but truly, they were the reason I kept going. Sometimes, I still hear whispers about Marcus and Tessa, the same rumors on repeat. Debts, drama, breakups and makeups, followed by more chaos. Among our old social circle, they've become a cautionary tale. One friend once asked me over coffee, "Alina, how can you be so calm?" If it were me, I'd have lost my mind. I just shrugged and smiled. There's nothing to lose your mind over. They're reaping what they sowed. I don't need to do anything. And that's exactly how it is. Watching them fall apart doesn't just bring satisfaction. It brings closure. I don't chase revenge anymore. I don't waste my energy on anger or resentment. I'm too busy living a life worth living. Even so, there are nights when I stand by the tall glass windows of my penthouse, holding a warm cup of tea, watching the city lights blur beneath me. I let the memories return, the silent betrayals, the midnight fights, the despair that once strangled my hope. I don't try to forget. I learn to live with it, like a healed scar, reminding me how fragile I once was and how strong I've become. Through that pain, I found my best self, braver, wiser, no longer afraid of being left behind. Life still throws challenges my way, but I welcome them with hands that are ready and a heart no longer trembling from old wounds. Losing Marcus and Tessa was once the most painful thing, but now I see it for what it truly was. A gift, because they didn't just leave. They freed me. Now every day is a step forward, unchained from expectations and facades. I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. And the best part? I don't need anyone's validation. I've built a life I'm proud of, surrounded by people who love me for who I am, not what I can give. A life that is wide, full of opportunity, and rich with purpose. My world is brighter now, kinder and truer than anything Marcus or Tessa ever imagined. And the best part? The old chapter is closed. This is my story, and I'm writing it my way.